Hello, my name's Greg Egan, and I'm a social worker that's been in the field since the late 1990s. And in this topic, I'm going to talk about 10 tips to leave a narcissist safely. And this also applies to generally abusive partners. So let's get into it. So, to start with, leaving a relationship with a narcissist can be challenging and potentially dangerous, as they may react negatively to losing control over you. As narcissists need to be in control, they need to control the narrative of what's being said, and you leaving them impacts on their public image of who they are. And narcissists are very self-absorbed, but also people with narcissistic personalities may be physically and verbally abusive and may be a risk to you if you try leaving them. So that's why I say you have to be careful when leaving a narcissist. So it's important to prioritize your safety when planning to leave. So here are some tips to leave in a safe way. 1, in domestic violence generally, or even in dealing with abusive partners, we talk about safety plans. And I've worked on a lot of these sort of safety plans when I worked in the fields of child protection in the past, and also within the mental health field. So what you want to be doing is developing a detailed plan that includes specific steps to ensure your safety during and after leaving. Consider factors such as where you will go that is safe, whether it be a refuge, whether it be a friend's house, family's house, whatever it is, who you can reach out to for support, such as services, friends, and how to secure important documents and belongings, such as passports, driver's license, clothes, whatever you may need, electronic devices. Also, changing passwords to emails, bank accounts, electronic devices, changing phone passwords, considering legal or police action if needed. Consider reaching out for service support, especially if you are escaping with children, as children can be used as a weapon by a narcissist. And I have experienced this personally and still experiencing it through parental alienation. So please reach out for support. And of course, there is a lot more services for females escaping abusive relationships than there is males out there. But men can still ring up and ask for help through different services. Like in New South Wales, Australia, if a man was trying to escape, the domestic violence services are more female orientated. So his best bet would be to call child protection services seeking help for accommodation if he's going to struggle with accommodation with his children, and also to get advice from police. Where a woman, there is a lot of domestic violence services, refuges, women's legal services. There is a lot more services out there for women in the community. 2, gather a support network. Reach out to trusted friends, family members, or support organizations who can provide that emotional support, practical assistance, and safe place to stay if needed. Share your situation with them and let you know about your plans. For example, when I was planning on leaving my ex-narcissistic and abusive partner, I reached out to my family and friends, preparing myself for leaving the relationship. And eventually I accessed victims of crime in New South Wales, Australia for therapeutic support to help me work through the trauma of leaving that relationship and what I experienced during it. It can be a lot easier if you have friends, family, and support services around you. I can tell you that. I should point out this can be harder again for male victims of violence due to there being a lack of service support for men out there. I was just lucky that I had family to go to. So consider your options. And there may be men's services in your area, because in each country, each state, etc., it's very different in what's available to men and women and families in general. 3, secure important documents. So make copies of documents such as identification papers, financial records, and legal documents. Store them in a safe place or leave them with someone you trust. This will help you establish independence and also protect your rights and give you evidence for the court system. This is where I made one big mistake, as I did not make copies of all the bank statements, financial records, and my ex-partner had separate bank accounts, so she was hiding a lot from me. And to help prove that my ex-partner had stolen over $105,000 from the accounts, plus all gold shares, a whole bunch of things. It was actually quite difficult post that. And my lawyer advised me that to chase it through forensic accountants in the family court, it would cost a substantial amount of money. So I ended up just letting that go. And I still know she ended up with over 105,000. That was just in the cash alone. The gold and the other shares that she had stored away at the time, who knows what happens to that? That was just not included in the divorce settlement because of that, which placed me at some financial hardship in the end, where I nearly lost my house. And I would say another trick that you could do here, though, is scan all the important documents. If you can't physically take the papers, scan them so you have full copies of things, and start emailing them to your own personal email that maybe your partner doesn't know about, or even your work email, so that you have copies of every important document that there is that could help you legally in the separation, as it can be costly chasing money later if you don't have the records on everything. And narcissists will lie openly in court, sometimes believing they are so good that they won't get caught. Like even my ex-partner engaged a third party to even lie for her, to say that it was a personal loan. And that was not actually part of our joint assets. And yes, I could have challenged it. And yes, I could have chased it. But as my lawyer said, it was going to cost a lot of money proving that the two of them were openly lying in the family court. So it's important that when you are looking at leaving a relationship, photocopy all documents, collect copies of all documents, bank statements, deeds of the houses, copies of any records to do with the houses, tax documents. Collect any evidence that you can get, which may help you with settlement later, but also help you establish some sort of financial stability. 4, and this is where I get into that financial stuff, create a safety net. Start saving money discreetly if possible to establish a financial safety net. Narcissists often use financial control as a tactic, so having access to funds can provide you with options and reduce dependency. And so whether it be slowly ciphering money to your parents' account, to a bank account they don't know about, with the address of that bank account going to a trusted friend or family member's house. And you may be able to do this through such means as in your actual pay slip, diverting a small percentage of your money to this other source, to this other bank statement, to this other bank, I mean. So that way, when you are planning to leave, you've got a little bit of a safety net there that may establish you with getting bond for a rent, or even a hotel, or some other sort of financial thing to help you reestablish yourself. Example, my ex-partner stopped paying the mortgage of one of the houses and started maxing out a joint line of credit with her personal expenses to try and drain me as much as financially possible to reduce my capacity to fight her legally in court. My advice was to freeze, and my general advice and my lawyer's advice was just freeze the accounts, freeze the bank accounts. If they got joint credit cards, got joint lines of credits, because then they can't be maxed out. But also, if you're looking at leaving, go to the banks and discreetly put 2 signature against everything and put a reduced amount that can be withdrawn from the account. Because I didn't have a 2 signature thing on my home loan, that's when my ex was able to empty the bank account of over $105,000 just overnight and make it disappear. So it's very important that you do that 2 signature thing on all bank accounts. And if you know you're in an abusive relationship, don't make the mistake I did of opening joint bank accounts, joint credit cards, joint lines of credit, because it will come back to haunt you later. Because when you try to leave them, they will do whatever they're in their power to drain you financially, and they'll drag you in and out of court, if possible, to make sure you are left with nothing. So narcissists are like that because they believe they've got this sense of they feel self-entitled because you left and they should get some form of financial compensation. And so they will come after you. I'll tell you that. But anyway, let's get on to number 5. Just be careful. Plan your finances carefully when you're exiting. Banks, credit cards, lines of credit. Just a reminder there. Because that's the hardest thing you're going to find when you're reestablishing yourself, is having the money to do so. And in the family court, being a clear, honest disclosure of financial assets. The only way to do that is have copies of all the relevant documents, business accounts, bank statements, each other's bank statements, whatever you can get copies of. You need all those financial records as part of the separation. 5, keep evidence. See, if you experience any form of abuse or manipulation, document incidences, save text messages or emails, keep a record of any witnesses that have witnessed these particular incidents. This can be valuable if legal action or protection orders become necessary. And for example, one of the things I often advise people, if you are in an abusive relationship, do exactly what I did. Once I realized I started to finally accept I was in an abusive relationship, I started sending emails to myself, sharing my feelings, sharing my emotions of what was going on, and even talking about some incidents that happened. I also reached out to friends, reached out to families, even talked to my bosses at work about what was going on. So a lot of people knew what was happening to me, around me. And so if I ever needed to go to court to prove that I was a victim, I had a lot of witnesses that were willing to write affidavits for me and protect me, because they knew exactly what I went through and how it emotionally impacted on me, and really nearly destroyed me on an emotional level, because it really took me into the ground. And that's why I had to get my own counselling. And then when it went to court, there was a lot of gaslighting of the fact that I was then being accused of as being a perpetrator. So everything they had done to me was now being turned back on me. But it was, in the end, it was all a game to gain money. That was it, because they felt they needed that compensation. So when you're dealing with a narcissist, they will gaslight you the moment you leave, the moment you start seeking help, the moment you reach out and start finally talking about your experience. They're going to gaslight you. They're going to attack you. They're going to stalk you, harass you potentially when you start sharing your experiences. So just be careful on that, and be aware that that stuff may happen. That's why you need to keep evidence. Start sending emails to yourself the moment abuse occurs. Start keeping a record somewhere of all the incidents that have occurred to you. And the thing with gaslighting is too, coming back to that, is that a narcissist will try and make us second guess our own recollection of events. So they will deny things have happened. They will deny they've ever said certain things. But if you're keeping records of things and you're tracking things and you're talking to your friends and family, you now have a way to verify your experience, to validate your experience. Because a narcissist will try and destroy that sense of self and make you believe basically you're the mad and you're the crazy one. So reach out, talk to people, record evidence of things that are happening discreetly before you even leave that relationship. 6, plan a safe exit. Choose a time and a place to leave when the narcissist is least likely to be around. And again, I'm referring to narcissists, but this could also apply to domestic violence perpetrators, abusive partners. I'm just using the term narcissist for the purpose of this presentation because I'm talking about narcissists. So, or when you have support around. So leave when the narcissist is less likely to be around, or when you have support. Consider involving local authorities if you feel unsafe during the departure, or if your partner has the potential to be physically violent or has been violent in the past, physically or emotionally violent, I should point out. The first time I tried to leave the relationship, I had filled up my car with everything that I wanted at the time, or what I thought I needed at the time. And then I'd taken a sick day off work and just went straight to my parents. Unfortunately, narcissists can be highly manipulative. And I went back to the relationship at that stage. It was a mistake, but I did it. And yes, so that's another thing to be aware of, that when you do finally escape, they will try and manipulate you and lure you back in. And yeah, so planning a safe exit, and I'll give you some examples. Like, I used to work as a child protection worker in the New South Wales government, and there was many occasions where the woman or the man was trying to escape from the abusive relationship. And sometimes we would have, as child protection workers, would have to turn up to the house with police to help that person leave, because narcissists can be highly controlling and domineering, and they may watch every movement you make. And in that case, you may not have that opportunity to discreetly leave the house. So you may need support from professionals. And if you do, then reach out to services that can help you do that safely. Restrict communication. So minimize contact with the narcissist, especially during the initial phase of separation. Change phone numbers, block their access to your social media accounts, and establish boundaries to protect your emotional well-being. Narcissists may stalk you through various means and try to lure you back into the relationship. This can be more complex where children are involved as well, and there is joint assets. And in these cases, you should seek some sort of legal advice or even involved authorities where necessary. But the reason I say restrict communication, because they may be trying to bait you into doing things. They may be trying to trick you into doing things and then using that against you in some legal way. Or they might be even trying to set you up, or they could be just trying to lure you back under their control. And if you restrict that communication and you only communicate for the purposes of legal communication or custody issues or financial stuff that you're sorting out, then so be it. But keep it very concise and be very careful what you say, and don't engage in any sort of arguments with them by text or on the phone. Keep the communication limited, because they will get into the blame game. They will get into the gaslighting. They will potentially become abusive to you over the phone, or they could even try love bombing you or getting you back into the relationship. So be very careful. And when you are having to communicate with them for the purposes of exchanges, try and do it somewhere public so that they can't set you up or they can't engage in some sort of violent outburst towards you. And that's also for your own safety, because narcissists could also be quite willing to accuse you of something you have not done. And if it's behind closed doors, it's going to be very hard to clear your name, especially if they have a friend or third party, which they often like to use in a form of triangulation to actually set you up and accuse you of stuff. So whether you're the guy or the female that's the victim here, consider your own protection. And even me, I was actually quite scared of actually going and exchanging things with even my child at the time, because prior to leaving the relationship, my ex-partner had made clear threats towards me in front of my parents that if I ever tried to leave the relationship, that she would do everything in her power to utterly destroy me. And she's tried her best, I can tell you that. And so that's where you have to be careful. Okay. And that's where having a counsellor working with you along the way can help you build some of these strategies, or even caseworkers from various welfare services. Again, number 8, consider legal advice. Consult with an attorney, a solicitor, a lawyer, whatever you like to call them in your country, who specialises in family law or domestic abuse or police. They can provide guidance on your legal rights, potential protective orders, custody issues, and financial matters. And so seek legal advice during the separation process if required. If you've got no joint assets and you've got no kids with the narcissist, that's going to be easy. Just get the heck out, block them, and never communicate with them again. But where there is some sort of thing tying the 2 of you together, get that advice. But even so, if there's nothing tying you guys together, you still may need that legal advice in the form of protection orders and other sorts of things to look after you. 9, prioritize self-care. Leaving a narcissistic or abusive relationship can be extremely emotionally draining because of the to and from communication that goes on, the abuse that goes on, the manipulation that goes on, the financial abuse, the physical, verbal abuse, the gaslighting. It can drain the living crap out of you, I can tell you that. I know it did to me. It just drained me. It really wore me down. was just lucky I had a great support network around me, and I had a counselor at the time. So focus on self-care and seek support from therapists or support groups that specialize in healing from narcissistic abuse or just generally abusive relationships, and that's specializing in helping you move forward from trauma. Take time to heal and rebuild yourself and your self-esteem. Because when you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, your self-esteem is going to be potentially shot to pieces. Your sense of self-worth is going to be shot to pieces. Your resilience is going to be all over the place. Your ability to manage stress is going to be completely trashed to a degree in some cases. You're going to feel very weak and vulnerable during that time of just leaving them. So please seek that help and take time to look after yourself, whether it's engaging in activities and hobbies that you actually enjoy, whether it's starting to tick off bucket lists of things you've always wanted to do, whether it's getting counselling support, whether it's getting that relevant legal advice, whether it's just engaging with friends and family that you may have been socially isolated from. Because when you're in a narcissistic relationship, they're going to want to cut you off from any friends, family that may be supportive of you and that are helping empowering you and that are helping you build your resilience, because they don't want you to be strong. They don't want you to have resilience. They don't want you to have a strong network, because that's a threat to their control. So that's where you want to reconnect with all those supports. And you never want to actually let those supports be taken away when you're in a relationship, because that will weaken you. An example, when I first started dating my ex-partner, the first thing they did was go through my Facebook page and decided who I could be friends with and who I couldn't be. It started cutting me off, all those people off my Facebook, and told me I was not allowed to talk to them. And at one stage, because my two best friends had actually started, who had worked in the same field as me, saw that I was in an abusive relationship. And they started talking to me, started supporting me. And then my partner saw them as an actual threat and wanted me to cut. And she banned me from seeing those two friends because they were a threat to the relationship. They were a threat to her control. And so I had to start taking sick days off work to re-engage with my friends so that I could gradually rebuild that strength and resilience back and continue to tell my story. And another thing I tend to do about self-care after separation from a narcissist is I tell people to avoid entering a new relationship, at least for the first year of leaving the relationship. Give yourself time to heal from the trauma associated with these types of relationships and build your own strength and resilience and understand what healthy boundaries mean to you and understand clearly what you need to be happy in life and outside of the relationship. Reflect, learn, and heal for a more healthy future, and be clear on what you want from life so that when you are finally ready to enter that relationship again, you have worked through some of that trauma. You have started setting your life goals. You have started creating a life of meaning and value, and you know what you want from life. And you also know what you want from a partner and what you need from a partner to be happy and what you're willing to give in a relationship. So there's just another tip on self-care moving forward. And finally, trust your instincts. Like, for example, at the beginning of my relationship, yes, I was a social worker with a lot of experience in the field in child protection. I'd worked a lot in domestic violence and all that. And I saw so many red flags at the beginning, like poor emotional regulation of my partner, going from 0 to 100 for no reason at all, just verbally attacking me, constantly trying to control and dominate me, cutting off my friends, cutting me off from my daughter, all the various things that she did. I was sabotaging relationships. I was even getting into my computer, getting into my phone and sending abusive messages to my ex-partner, who I had actually had a good relationship with upon separation. But my ex-abusive partner didn't want that. She didn't want me to still be connected with my ex-partner, didn't want me to have a good relationship with my daughter. So she worked very hard to sabotage that right from the beginning. And I saw all these red flags, but for some reason, I just ignored them. So I should have trusted my instincts in this. And that's the reason I'm putting this as number 10, because narcissists may try to manipulate or guilt tripping you into returning or questioning your decision to leave. Trust your instincts. Stay committed to your safety and well-being. Remind yourself of all these red flags. Remind yourself of all the abuse. Remind yourself of why you're leaving. And as you're doing that, learn from that, grow from that. Actually identify that these are future red flags for possible relationships. These are things I need to avoid. I might need to develop skills such as assertive communication skills, understanding my own needs, building my own strength and resilience outside of this. And I can't do that whilst I've got this sort of emotional turmoil trying to drag me back into this abusive relationship. So really sit down, trust yourself, accept that you need something better. Remind yourself that it's abusive. And even write out the reasons why you're leaving. Write out the reasons why the relationship is abusive. Talk to your counselor, talk to your support networks, and build your resilience, and resist returning to the relationship. It's going to be hard because a lot of people that leave abusive relationships, they do return to it several times before they finally leave. And I know this from working in the field of child protection, where I'd be helping men and women escape abusive relationships, but they would constantly return to them. And even in my private practice, doing counselling with people, trying to help them build their resilience, but they continually return to these relationships. It's because there's that trauma bond as well between the abuser and the victim. And the victim has this sense of that, I can't do any better. I need to go back to them because they've told me I can't do any better. And I had that constantly told to me, that I could not do any better, that I was going to be alone for the rest of my life, that no one would want me. I was constantly put down. I was constantly belittled throughout that relationship. And my ex even twisted things and even purchased an astrologer. This is how far she went. Got an astrologer to write a chart that would say that if I ever left her, I would be miserable for the rest of my life and be alone. That's how extreme a narcissist will go through to try and bring you back. So just be careful in being tempted with that, temptation to be dragged back into this relationship. And in conclusion, remember, leaving a narcissist or an abusive partner can be complex and potentially dangerous process. If you believe you're in immediate danger, contact emergency services, local helplines for assistance. Seek guidance from professionals who specialise in domestic abuse, who specialise in child abuse, for example, if you've got children. Trauma counsellors, going to your local GP, talking to professionals. Friends, family, anything, just reach out and seek that help. And ensure that your safety and potentially the safety of your children remains top priority in this process. And even with me, I'm a private clinician that does telephone and video consults. You can even send a referral to me to engage for therapeutic intervention. But I believe in educating people, and that's the reason why I do these videos. And I'm trying to help people not only avoid abusive relationships such as this, but learn to leave them safely. Learn to first identify that you're in an abusive relationship and then plan that exit. And there's a lot of services and individual practitioners like me that can actually help you plan that exit safely. But anyway, if you do like these sorts of videos, please continue to support my channel by hitting like, and please subscribe as I try to put more educational content up, psychological content up, or just general discussions on how to create a better and more positive life. And thank you for listening. As I try to stop this video, just give me a second here. But anyway, thank you for listening. please subscribe and hit like. And I hope this information has been informative to you.